Good evening, Mayor and Council. It is now 7 p.m. and we are live online.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll take an extra 10 seconds. Let us know. Everybody else good? All right. Just let me know when
I'm fine.
you're ready. Okay. All right. This is the official meeting, right? Yeah, it's the first Monday. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. Let's do a pledge of allegiance. The flag's behind you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, let's do a roll. Molly Rhodes, I think you're here.
Yes, I am.
Jeff Demansky, you're here. Amber Grant, Lee Kiriakou, Paloma Wake, Pam Weatherby, George Mansfield. Everybody here. Chris White, the city administrator, and who's online?
Good evening, Mayor. It's Nick Ward-Willis.
Good evening. Okay, so everyone's here. Our first, this is the first opportunity for public comment. As most of you know, that means you get 3 minutes on any topic that you like other than a public hearing. There are no public hearings this evening. There are 2 people signed up. Nancy Kober, come on up.
Nancy Kober, 14 North Chestnut. I've got 2 items here. First one concerns the pedestrian crossing button on the south side of 90 at Tyranda. It is broken. I'm concerned about it because that is an area coming up from Tyranda. There's a great hiking trail all along there. There's a lot of hikers. There's a lot of people on bikes and stuff. I don't know whether the use of that pedestrian button lengthens the time that the crossing is available to pedestrians, or whether the light itself does it. I don't know. But in any event, I'm concerned that that operates properly. That's a trail I often use, and I see a lot of people on it. That's my number 1 item. I know how important this is. Second item is, I'm wondering what is the current status of that condo project at 53 Eliza Street. I know there's been many delays with that. Obviously, we all know there's a lot of building going on in town, because this is obviously a very popular place to be constructing things. But I'm concerned, does City of Beacon have any sort of protections against episodes like what has happened at 53 Eliza Street not happening in the future? Because it's a real mess in terms of being an eyesore, but also potentially, I think, a source of some danger. Who knows what's living in there, animals, people, whatever. So those are my 2 great areas of concern concerning town. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll probably have the city administrator give us a little bit of an update on Eliza Street if we know something. Katie Hellman. Yeah. Well, I can then.
They know so much.
Hello, Katie Helmuth, Ward 1. I speak on behalf of my businesses, A Little Beacon Blog, Tin Shingle, and the local readers of A Little Beacon Blog. I have heard from my readers that they want a drive-through. They have not come down here, but some submitted letters in support during the public hearing. Those letters of the record were not read aloud for the public to hear, which is common practice for Beacon. I will read the opinions from my readers left at my platforms. From Amber Demonic, this was always an issue for Beacon. They never wanted franchise drive-thrus like McDonald's. I feel that the Dunkin' Donuts was great back then without a drive-thru, but was packed with teachers, corrections officers, and the tourists for the trails. The train passengers would be ideal. Go for it, Beacon. Amber also said students walk 52 daily to school, and crosswalks should have been implemented many years ago. Kelly Cavalletti said, "What is the issue with drive-thrus? Why is the council against them? How have they never had sick kids in the car and needed a prescription, or been recovering from surgery and had difficulty walking? This drive-thru issue is truly mind-boggling. All of the safety issues that we have, I don't think banning drive-thrus will make us safer or happier." Peggy Looney said, "Thank you for pointing this out. I have 2 autistic kids who have great difficulty being in stores and restaurants due to sensory issues. Drive-thrus have been incredibly helpful." Says a mom of 1 nonverbal child with a rare disorder who cannot walk on their own, 1 child with autism, and 1 child with ADD. She says, "I definitely could not live without drive-thrus based on my particular family dynamic, so I love that you are doing this." Howie DeWitt said the Beacon City Council has a vision for Beacon that does not include working-class, low-income people, so they are effectively blocking anything they feel would frequent and support. Even the affordable housing they make starts at $1,600 a month. I interviewed Lynx Auto when banning auto-related businesses along 52 was front and center. This was when the banning of all drive-thrus came up, and we've had this project before us. That is the Dunkin' Donuts with additional commercial space on the bottom, apartments on top, offer to build the crosswalk, and offer to build some kind of connection to the rail trail down below. The owner of Lynx Auto said that he was baffled as to why this all would be outlaw businesses like this, which he planned to leave to his son as his retirement and his son's ongoing career. He told me this type of pushing out was not new for him or the other auto businesses on 52. When Healy moved out of their part of their dealership, they wanted to do something else, and they accepted a lease for the new religious building being built. During this time, Councilperson Grant asked for a moratorium to stop all building. There doesn't seem to be justification for that. What there does seem to be is public support for some people who want to ban on all drive-thrus in Beacon, which would be a mechanism to stop this Dunkin' Donuts. While it doesn't outright stop the Dunkin' Donuts, it would make it less profitable.
15 seconds.
We have seen City Council do this with Edgewater and 248 Tyranda. When there was pushback against those projects, the council voted in legislation that introduced the new math about the steep slopes and the setbacks that required both Edgewater and 248 Tyranda to reduce the number of apartments being built, which was the
Your time has
closest thing
elapsed.
those pushing backs on the properties could get. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there others in the audience who'd like to speak?
Start your clock, Ben. I don't have anything written. There's so much I want to say. Almost a couple $1 million was passed to raise our taxes in the city library, and only just over 500 people went out to vote. I'd like the city to think about this. Today, you could buy a raised ranch in Beacon for $1.9 million, and you want to sell our most historic properties for that to private developers. I want to see that go to a public referendum and get the input from our community. We need to keep those buildings for the use of this city. I'm crushed to see that some people are just sharing the listings when they should be advocating for saving and protecting these registered and listed properties that are in historic districts. There's about 20 other things I want to bring up, but I'll just let it go there and I'll sit and listen. But you're being watched, and I agree. People are out there saying stuff and nobody in the public is hearing because it's not being... Lately, you're sharing the minutes. They're extremely vague. You have to have public citizens transcribing them to get them out in the public. I think we could do better. We are a city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the physical public want to make a comment? Okay. Ben, anyone online want to make a comment in the first public comment
If you're on
section?
Zoom and you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand option at the bottom of your screen. If you're joining by phone, you can press *9. Lastly, if you're watching us on YouTube this evening, you will need to join us on Zoom instead by visiting beaconny.gov. Right now we have one hand raised on Zoom, and that is Sergey. Sergey, you have permission to speak whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Sergey Krasik of Ward 3. I want to note a couple things. First, this weekend we had a wonderful event in Beacon, Breakneck Point Half and Full Marathon. They started at University Settlement and went all the way to over Breakneck to Little Stony Point. I actually ran a half marathon myself, my first time ever. It was a wonderful event, brought about, 500-600 people to town, and I wish there was some presence and acknowledgement of the event from the city. I think it brings a lot of attention to our city and a lot of dollars. I hope this will be the case in the future years. Next, I want to let people know that registration is open for the River Swim, which is a fundraiser for the river pool in Beacon. It's a wonderful event. where people swim from Newburgh to Beacon to celebrate Pete Seeger's legacy of clean and swimmable Hudson River. Registration is open. Please go to riverpool.org to register. And lastly, Fishkill Creek Watershed Alliance is starting our community water quality testing of the Fishkill Creek this Sunday. We will have a crew meeting at Madame Brett and another at Tymo Park in Unionvale at 8:45 a.m. To get training on sample collection, and then we will start collecting samples, and then they will go to Bard College for processing. We will test for metals, chemicals, and also fecal indicator bacteria, which is presence of poop in our water, and it will be the first watershed-wide testing in a very long while. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben, are we good?
No further hands on Zoom.
Okay. Thank you all. Let's do reports. We want to start with George, work our way around?
Sure. I actually don't have anything significant to report this week, but thank you.
I also don't have anything to report, and unfortunately, I ended up having an issue that I couldn't be in public last week, so I missed a lot that we had talked about, unfortunately. I'll turn it over to Paloma.
Thanks, Pam. I'm sorry you were feeling 100%. I had the pleasure of attending a lovely event last weekend on Pete Seeger's birthday. The Sur Amigables is a wonderful organization that was founded in Beacon in 1948 by Olga Galloway. I saw a few of my colleagues there. I know Lee usually attends as well, but I just appreciated being able to see a number of Beacon community members honored in support of student scholarships for students here in Beacon. I'll say that my open office hours this month are going to be this coming Sunday, May 11th, from 4 to 6 p.m. I'll be at Bank Square Coffee House. I also want to say I appreciate the comments from everybody tonight. I'm going to save some of my thoughts about drive-thrus in particular for when we get to that agenda item, but I appreciate folks speaking, sharing your perspectives and opinions.
Okay. All right, two things. Hopefully the weather holds out, but on Wednesday, May 7th, is National Bike and Roll to School Day. This has been happening in Beacon for a couple years now. It's really nice. The students travel to school on their bikes or scooters, or they walk. The two groups for Sargent and South Avenue are meeting over by Loopers at 7:45, and they leave at 8. And for JV Forestell, they're meeting at 8 at the Roundhouse and leaving at 8:20. Helmets are required, but it is very nice. I'm planning to be at the Loopers Plaza for a little bit to wave people off, so hope to see some folks there. And the other event that I wanted to mention is the Animal Rescue Foundation's Run and Walk with the Dogs. It is their 10th anniversary. That is taking place on May 18th, 9 o'clock at Memorial Park. I also plan to be there. It's a very nice event. They do a lot of great work in our community. I think early registration has ended, but you can still sign up, so hope to see some people at that one too. And that's all.
Thanks, Amber. A couple of thanks for events that happened in the past. Thanks to the Beacon Conservation Advisory Committee and to Hudson Valley Brewery and many great groups and individuals who are all part of the Earth Day cleanup event and environmental fair that took place at the brewery afterwards. A really great turnout, really great information, just lovely enthusiasm, which we need in this community. And on that same vein of this community and what we need, there was a great event that I Am Beacon hosted at the church right across the street. It was called The Fabric of Our Community, and it was a really nice attendance too by groups focused on volunteerism opportunities here in Beacon, just really connecting people with those opportunities and encouraging more of that kind of activity amongst our community members. One last thing, but a few points on it. On the heels of our conversation on communications, there is an updated draft of the survey questions that is available on the City Council webpage. There's 4 links, 2 in English, 2 in Spanish. I will be sharing with my council members the results that we've had from the winter version of that survey. And as described before, we're going to do quarterly updates. So I've drafted a new set of questions that I'll be seeking feedback on. Largely the same questions and basic information, but the 4 questions that are replacing 4 other questions are really focused on city communications, giving people the opportunity to give feedback on what they would like to see, how they'd like to see it, just to inform our conversations and our strategies about what we can do in terms of improving city communications, so that people have the opportunity, just reducing hurdles so we can get feedback and it can be shared amongst us in some detail, which is really nice. I will also share with my, unless actually this is kind of a question and an offer, but we talked about developing a list of priorities from our communications conversation. I've started to draft a list of internal activities that we can do within, no-cost activities that we could do with internal staff and members of our council, as well as some actions for consideration that we might consider looking for external support. And I will share those with my fellow council members as well. And welcome your feedback.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. I also had an opportunity to attend the I Am Beacon volunteerism event a couple weekends ago, and it was a great opportunity for people to learn about volunteering opportunities here in Beacon and locally around here, either organizations looking for volunteers. Les Sœurs Amiable was there. I also attended their bruncheon this past weekend with Paloma and others, as she mentioned, either looking for our volunteers or wanting to be volunteers themselves. So something that I wish I had when I first came, although maybe then I would not have ended up on city council had I found other things I could do with my time. And I Am Beacon has talked about doing other events in the future, so if you're interested in that, you can look them up online. They have a great website too, and find out about future events. Speaking of opportunities in the community, this one's actually paid. We are looking for school crossing guards, something we're constantly looking for, but particularly right now. So this would probably not be, you wouldn't start until next school year, but it's both the morning shift and the afternoon shift. The morning shift pays $18 an hour, and the afternoon shift pays $20 an hour. So if you happen to have capacity at either or both of those times, perhaps you're retired but still looking to keep your hand in the community and potentially make some extra money as well. It's actually run through our police department. They manage the recruiting. So you can reach out to Helen in the police office at 845-831-4111, or you can reach out to Lieutenant Mike Confield at mconfield, CONFIELD, at beaconny.gov if you're interested. And lastly, I will have my office hours next Friday, May 16th from 4 to 6 p.m. I'm going to say Pole Hill Park because the weather is mostly turning, but if it's raining like today, I'll just be next door in Bank Square Coffee House. And Lee, I will pass it to you.
Okay. Thank you all. I appreciate that council members were able to attend events over the weekend. My wife and I were down in the city, and so couldn't do it, so thank you for going. I've got a letter that we just came in the mail. It's from the city assessor. Homeowner or property owners will be getting this letter if you haven't already got it. And it basically says what your assessed value of your property is this year versus last year. Now, let me just tell you how to interpret this. At the very bottom, it says that the average overall residential increase was approximately 6.5%. So the first thing I did was I looked at the assessed value of our home in last year and this year, and I calculated how much it went up. It went up exactly 6.5%. So if our home went up 6.5% and all of the residential homes went up 6.5%, what does that mean about our my home taxes? All right, so let me take you through that. So what that means is, let me give you an example. Let's assume that there are only 100 properties in Beacon. They're all homes, right? Those 100 homes have to pay all of the property tax in Beacon. So first of all, instead of 100, the next year there's 101 because there's new construction. So what happens to our taxes when we add a home to the 100 to get to 101, what that basically means is everyone's taxes go down 1% because the new home picks up the difference. All right, so that's what new construction does. Every year, we're adding 1 to 2% to the tax base in terms of new construction, which means every year your taxes are being paid for 1 to 2% of your taxes by those new homes. Right? That's the first thing. The second thing that you have to see is what does the council do in terms of what percentage tax increase that they do during budgeting. So the total budget of the city is 13 million. That's probably not very easy. That's not a very reasonable number with 100 homes, but it's a lot more reasonable with 4,500 or 5,000 properties. So if the city raises taxes 2%, those 100 homes will see a 2% tax increase, pure and simple. But because there's a new home, right, goes from 100 to 101, the 100 existing homes will only see a 1% tax increase, and the other will be covered by that new home, right? So that's basically how to understand the problem. So my home went up 6.5%. The average home went up 6.5%. That just means whatever the city council's tax increase will be my tax increase. If it's 2%, I'll pay 2%. If it's 4%, I'll pay 4%. Why isn't it 6.5%? Because everybody's went up by that amount, and mine went up the same amount, so my share of the total doesn't change. So you asked the question lastly, so if the assessments go up 6.5%, how come the taxes, my taxes don't go up 6.5%? And that's because the rate comes down, right? So if the council did a 0% tax increase and everyone's property went up 6.5%, the tax rate would come down 6.5%. Our tax rate has been coming down consistently year over year. It's now in the $5 something per $1,000 of assessed valuation, and it's substantially lower than our neighboring cities because we've been doing well in terms of assessments and construction. All right, I'm hoping that helps a little bit. It might be too much math. If you have questions, I'm happy to take them, and I'll probably do a version of this to put on 52 or on a separate tape on council. That's all I've got for today. And then, City Administrator?
So I will respond to the couple things that came up, and then I have a couple announcements. Thank you for bringing to our attention the pedestrian signal, and anytime something like that happens, please call us at 838-5000. We'll try to get someone over there promptly. On the race this weekend, we did help to support the Breakneck Point Trail Run that ran out of the settlement camp. So our staff were there parking cars, they were preparing it. We worked with state parks to permit that. So the city had quite an effort in that. We didn't promote it a lot because the race was full, and the promoters, which are Red Newt Racing, do a great job of bringing in elite runners to run the mountain trails, and that is a really extraordinary event. The other thing, the condominiums, I want to let you know that they are moving again. Fortunately, we have issued multiple orders to remedy when the site was not secured, when there were things blowing off the building. It looks like there's kind of new energy in it, and it looks like it's proceeding forward. So right now they're in compliance with everything. We're hoping that they'll be selling those units shortly. There's 9 units, and they have made great progress over the last couple months after kind of being dormant. My announcements are we have bulk garbage drop-off starting the 3rd Saturday of May, which is May 17th, and running until the 3rd Saturday of September, which is September 20th. If you're up to date on your taxes, you can bring to our transfer station up to 250 pounds of construction waste or other household waste that you would normally have to pay to get rid of. And the transfer station is open Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturday. You can go to our website, beaconny.gov, and get the hours. The second thing is that we're launching the rehabilitation of South Avenue Park, and that work is beginning today. We have a groundbreaking for the council and Jonathan Jacobson, who helped fund the project, on this Friday, May 9th at 2 p.m. So please come out and join us. We're going to be resurfacing both the tennis and the basketball courts, redoing all of the fencing, excavating the retaining walls that have failed and resloping those, and then adding a brand-new public bathroom. So we hope to be done with everything but the bathroom by July 4th, and then later in the summer, we'll complete that restroom. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. We've got 3 resolutions to work on this evening. They seem fairly straightforward. Let's see. The first one is authorizing the city administrator to execute an extension agreement with Royal Karting, and that's for trash and recycling. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
So Molly and Pam. Chris, you want to give us some details for the public?
Sure. As we discussed in last week's workshop meeting, we are building off a contract that we've been in with Royal Karting since 2019. Royal Karting is the private entity that picks up the city's residential garbage and recycling, which we offer through people's taxes. We have been holding the cost of that agreement the same since 2019. This year we're proposing for 2026 a slight increase of 1% for the collection, because we have done a better job of measuring what's collected that we pay on, and that part has actually gone down. So we continue year over year to either have the same cost or less, and we're trying to lock that in for 2026 with all the unpredictability in the economy. So if you approve that agreement, we will then extend our current contract. Our current contract goes through the end of the year, then we'd have a 1% increase next year, which is really helpful for our budgeting purposes.
Okay, any questions or comments?
Just that I appreciate you working on this and continue to kind of, I think, get a great deal for the city, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the more things we can hold to 0 or 1%, the better we're going to be able to tolerate some of the big items that are going up a fair amount. And we'll keep you posted on those. But yeah, we're going to try to manage against this. All right, with no other commentary, let's have a vote. All those in favor of authorizing the city administrator to execute this extension agreement with Royal Karting, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, one down. The next one is a referral. So we're referring a local law. It's a zoning change for self-storage facilities, and we're referring it to the planning board of the city and the Dutchess County Planning. Can I get a motion and a second for that referral?
Motion.
Second.
So that was Molly and Amber. Nick, will you tell us what are we referring?
Thank you, Mayor. So the City Council had previously introduced, held a public hearing, and received comments from the City and County Planning Board on one local law that addressed 2 topics, drive-through facilities as well as self-storage facility. After the public hearings were closed and at a workshop meeting, the City Council requested that the local laws be divided into 2 separate topics, one local law for drive-through facilities, the second being for self-storage facilities. At its last workshop, the City Council discussed some revisions to the proposed amendments in the zoning code for self-storage facilities. And so we have prepared a revised local law that is in your agenda packet. It is our firm's opinion and recommendation that the local law needs to be referred back to the county planning board and the city planning board for report and recommendation and a public hearing held. The significant change was in section B of the local law on page 1, where you've identified that self-storage facilities are permitted uses in the GB, LI, and HI zoning districts, except on parcels with frontage on Main Street, Fishkill Avenue, Beekman Street, Herbert Street, and Tyranda Avenue, which are only allowed by special permit. And then there's the special permit criteria that you reviewed at the last workshop meeting. There was also a change to the table of uses to indicate that a self-storage facility is either a permitted or a special permit use. So if you look at the table of uses, you'll see it says S/P to indicate, depending upon section 223-24.5, where in the city it's located, it may be a principal permitted use or it may be subject to a special permit. So this resolution refers the revised local law and schedules the public hearing.
Just a compliment for you and Nick, Natalie. I think this new section that you added kind of really succinctly and elegantly captures the kind of substantial conversation we had around self-storage units that kind of went various different ways, but I feel like you captured it all, so thank you for working on that.
Thank you. I'll share that with Natalie. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a referral to Dutchess County Planning and to our planning board. Any further discussion on the referral?
Sorry, one clarifying question. If for some reason, I see that May 19th is the new public hearing, and then if for some reason we don't get feedback by then, we can simply adjourn that public hearing. Is that accurate, Nick?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so all in favor of referring the proposed zoning change for self-storage facilities to the county planning, to Dutchess County Planning and to the City of Beacon Planning Board, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Now the third one, which was separated out from the second one, is a local law. It's again on zoning, and it concerns drive-through facilities. And can I get a motion and a second on that?
Motion?
Second.
So that was Paloma and George. And Nick, you're going to take us through what's in this one, right?
I am, Mayor. Thank you. So this is, as the Mayor said, the second part of the local law. That hearing had been held. Comments received from the City and County Planning Board. Comments received from the public. Public hearing closed. You've workshopped this local law and discussed it on a number of occasions. And so in your packet is the local law without any further changes. The local law is addressed towards prohibiting drive-throughs and also clarifying some language in section 223-17B regarding uses not expressly permitted are prohibited. And you'll see some other language in there as well addressing to that non-technical change. Also in your agenda packet is a copy of the environmental assessment form that you've reviewed, the full environmental assessment.
Nick, push back a little bit. You're a little too close to the mic.
Thank you, Chris. So you also have in your agenda packet the full environmental assessment form, parts 1, 2, and 3 that you have reviewed, and Natalie has reviewed with you, and I know that some of you have looked at it based upon my conversations with some of you as well. And so part 3 of the EAF is the negative declaration that sets forth why this zoning change will not have a significant adverse environmental impact, and a full environmental impact statement is not required. And so in the resolution tonight, you are adopting the local law and also making a determination of issuing a negative declaration. Thank you, Chris.
And Nick, I think just a point of clarification, because I feel like I've heard this, but I'm looking at our table and there are no changes to where gas filling stations and or car washes or auto body or repair shops. There are no changes to those uses with this law, right?
That is correct. Those laws are not those uses are not impacted by this law.
Okay. Comments?
I'll say as a general thing, not actually related to the drive-through component, but to the other component of the idea that anything that is not expressly permitted is prohibited unless we kind of change it, that I feel, as we talked about when we first brought this up, at least a couple months ago, that the City of Beacon is ready for that level of detail, and so I appreciate working on that, and then that gives us as a body council, perhaps the zoning group too, that Mayor Lee talked about putting together to kind of talk about, are there other uses we might want to permit that aren't included on here or change the areas in. So I feel like it sets us up well for the future.
Okay. I'll go on this. So the reason that one finds drive-throughs incompatible is that they're incompatible with areas with high pedestrian use. So the perfect example is Main Street, or a broader example is most of New York City, right, where there's such heavy pedestrian use that it doesn't make a great deal of sense to have cars cutting across the sidewalk with regularity. While that is a laudable goal on Route 52, it's a long, long way off. And the council needs to be cautious about putting in the desired zoning a long way off today. If you put in the desired zoning today, it may actually backfire and have the opposite effect of maintaining the existing uses there far longer than would otherwise be the case. The area that we're dealing with on Route 52 has been for many years used for car dealerships. By far the easiest use would be another car dealership. And my concern is that if we don't permit some transitional uses, and I do think a drive-through would be a transitional use, we will end up with many more years of car dealerships, probably used car dealerships, instead of seeing the change that we want. I would advise the council to be cautious and to think through what is the gradual approach of zoning changes that will give us a Route 52 that becomes more and more residential. I don't think this is the right first step.
I would disagree to that, because I did hear you, Lee, just even a year ago saying there's no reason for a moratorium, there's nothing going to come to that area, and we do have 3 new businesses looking at that area. I know this has been, we had talked about drive-throughs. I had missed the April 14th discussion, and I want to say that all of you had great comments. I listened to what Natalie said. Previous to that, I listened to what the planning board said. I know they had said Fishkill Avenue might be the only area that they could see drive-throughs, but when the Fishkill Avenue Concepts Committee, when the mayor had put that in place, drive-throughs was one of the discussions. So this is going back to 2023 that this discussion, if not before, was being had. And they studied this area, they studied it for over a year, and they came up with similar findings of what I was seeing personally on Fishkill Avenue. Nothing that I said made them make those comments, but as a resident of Ward 3 and seeing that area, the only way that I could see drive-throughs working is to have turning lanes. I've looked at the stretch of 52 all the way to John Jay High School. I don't see any drive-throughs right off of Main Street or off of 52 and Main Street in Fishkill, that they either tell you you can't make the left turn into it, it's in a separate parking lot that isn't just for the drive-through business, or you can't make the right turn out of it, and it would not work for any area in Beacon to be able to do that. I do not feel. I feel that what the planning board verbally was talking about, I agree with. I agree with the Fishkill Avenue Concepts Committee. I've read through the 2007 and the 2017 comprehensive plan, and they're all in agreement with similar. I think Beacon has I personally feel that Beacon has a good problem to have, and I feel that not allowing drive-throughs allow that area to kind of, it might not happen next year, but I feel that it's going to happen sooner than we all think, because nobody would have thought in 5 years what happened to this city. And I think it's going to happen just as quick. So I feel this is a good decision. The future rail trail, while federal funding may be an issue, I felt that was a lot closer in listening to that presentation and to other people's comments, that's going to happen sooner than later also, and I have faith that that'll stay on track. That's my comments.
And I agree with Pam, but I also understand where you're coming from, Lee, in terms of transitioning, and this, as you say, this won't happen overnight. But I do think our responsibility is zoning, and I think we have to zone for what we want ultimately to see, and it has to look both to next year and to 3, 5, 10, 20 years going forward. Specifically to drive-ins, I think they do, as I said a few weeks ago, I think they encourage a lot of fast food type businesses, and I think they go up fast, and I think one follows the other, and all of a sudden we could easily have a series of chain stores and McDonald's and Wendy's and various other places along there, and I don't think that's really what we want to see as a community. I would have taken the compromise of allowing this one that's currently before the planning board to have that grandfathered in. That's not a consideration this evening. So I think I definitely will be voting against, for this resolution.
Thank you, folks. I'll go next. I'll say that I agree with a lot of what all three of you said, actually, but would reiterate the point that George made, that we have to zone for what we ultimately want to see. Natalie, in her comments a few weeks ago, said something along the lines of sometimes you have to build for what you want. And I see, in terms of that timeline, Lee, of development that you're talking about, and when we get to that level of high pedestrian use, we're working on sidewalk renovations right now. Pam mentioned the rail trail. These changes are in motion, and they're changes that I think are changes that we want to see. We want to see more pedestrian traffic. We want to see more accessibility for people who are on wheels, either via bicycles or wheelchairs, which we do already see happening on that stretch, and we want them to be able to access those roadways safely. I also want to acknowledge some of the comments that we've received, both in public comment and via email. I appreciate that drive-throughs support accessibility for car-bound individuals and families, meaning parents with children with special needs or not, adults with mobility needs of their own, and other folks. And I am particularly discouraged to hear that individuals see this as a class-based issue. For what it's worth, I personally have nothing against franchises, and the city has no policy against them. But I think for me, it's a question of franchises designed for people, like the subway that we have on Main Street, or franchises designed for cars, which is what I see a drive-through being. I am planning to vote for this law because in weighing those considerations against the benefits, I strongly believe that this will be a net good for the city and all of our residents through other forms of accessibility, as I'm talking about having our infrastructure be accessible for pedestrians and, again, people on wheels of all kinds, and also addressing climate and environmental health concerns in the long term. I want to be prioritizing the type of again, I'm just going to keep saying pedestrian-oriented, but when I say that, I don't just mean people who are able-bodied. I mean people who are mobile in other ways. And I agree with what Pam said about managing traffic and wanting to have fewer idling vehicles, which are an air quality concern that has come up several times in conversations that I've had. So I know that this isn't what is ideal for a number of people that we've heard from, but I am pretty clear that this is the best long-term decision for Beacon.
Other comments?
Yeah, one thing to echo with Paloma that I think I heard a planning board member say, that this is one of those items that good people can disagree and disagree well, that this isn't clearly one way or the other. I too was like, I wish this was a cannabis dispensary or something that didn't bring up the class conversation, so we could have a conversation about the zoning thing, one of the main critical things that we're charged with, and not have it be a conversation about this particular business, that we are where we are. But I think that's true, that I'm trying to think about the zoning. And I hear you, Lee, about what is going to go there. I really appreciate that the Healy family, the family that owns Laws Properties, they have, with the various developments that Pam brought up, that they have been working on sidewalks. They've been very cognizant of our vision and thinking about that as well. So they've been great stewards of the city. Obviously, they had their businesses centered here and their car dealerships centered here. And so I'm hoping that whether they continue to own it or find that they kind of want to look at other opportunities, that they continue to be good partners as they have been all along, and that whoever kind of builds along there kind of can work with us on this vision. And I think it is worth the idea of what we want in the future.
I'd only add a couple of other things. I actually think we've done a good conversation here, and I'm very respectful of everyone's views. And I think we've raised a number of the issues, which is good. The one thing you've said, Pam, I really do hope the rail trail comes quickly, because if I kind of look at what's going to catalyze pedestrian use, that's going to be the big one. And you know, I'm committed to making that happen. I'm committed to connecting it to that area, and I'm hopeful on that. Again, I think our primary disagreement is merely a matter of timing. I think if tomorrow it was as pedestrian as we imagine it to be, we would actually all agree and zone it this way. And I'm glad that we're only dealing with one particular use. You know, Amber, you raised, we're not changing any of the other uses, we're working on this particular one. And I think that makes it a very appropriate thing for you all to do, regardless of how the vote turns out. So.
Yeah, I'll just point out one additional thing, that there is a really great use that's out there already that would encourage a lot of pedestrian and bicycle traffic. I think, that's the facility in and around Industrial Brewing Arts, which is a phenomenal location with amazing views, and you can't beat the trip there. But I mean, I'm a New York City biker. I biked for years in New York City and only got run over by a bus once. And, have a lot of bruises from the cabs there. And so there's no more comfortable drive, but I'm intimidated to bike out on Fishkill to get out to that spot that I want to go to. So I think their uses are there now. And, I'm not waiting on the rail trail. I think, we need to set the tone for what we want. And there's, we want it now.
Okay. We good? Mm-hmm. All right, let's go for a vote. So all in favor of adopting resolution that amends the zoning to eliminate drive-through facilities, at least on 52 or I think citywide. Citywide, say aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? So again, for the reasons I stated, which is more a matter of timing, I will vote no. Okay, thank you all. Again, I thought it was a very respectful conversation, and let's move on. I need a motion and a second to approve the minutes of April 21.
Motion.
Second.
Molly and Amber, I don't know what we do with minutes when you're not here, Molly. Any questions, adjustments, corrections, insertions, deletions?
I don't have anything.
Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes of April 21, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, this is the second opportunity for public comment. If you did not make a comment the first time and would like to do so now, this is your opportunity. Seeing no one in the physical audience wanting to make a comment who hasn't made one already, Ben, anyone in the online world?
No hands raised on Zoom.
So let me announce the next meeting. The next meeting is on Monday, May 12th at 7 p.m. It will be a workshop as opposed to a formal meeting. And then I will look for a motion to go into executive session to discuss real property, to then come out of executive session, do no further business, and immediately adjourn.
Motion to go into executive session to discuss real property and then do no further public business thereafter.
Second.
So Molly and Pam, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all and have a good night, except for council, stick around.
And Nick will record. Ben doesn't give you a second. I don't even get